Hey everybody, it's Matt. Welcome back. I'm back from vacation. A huge thank you to Jimmy and Alyssa for hosting in my absence. We started like exactly on time, and so people are still filtering in. So hi, for those of you just tuning in now, you're probably getting past a commercial or whatever else. Yes, I am continuing to maintain Zen mode. So if you've been terrified of getting yelled at or cursed out because you've got the dumbest idea for a god or a political position ever, you're fine. We're sitting here waiting for your calls. If you want to call in to defend your God belief, if you think John and I have missed something, if you think that this is something you can demonstrate, or the same thing with political positions, primarily if you think we're wrong, get your calls in right now. I see calls already starting to line up, so that's good. We are also going to be prioritizing real phone calls over web calls a bit. I understand a lot of you are going to need to use the web call system, but this is going to be like a lot of other Wednesday nights with a couple of exceptions. First, I want to start with something kind of like good news, and this is incredibly weird to say, but a Muslim has just won the Democratic primary for New York City mayor. And I say that's a good thing, not because I have any interest in Muslims being in positions of power. I definitely don't. But because he beat out Cuomo. Now, for those who don't know, Cuomo's a guy who seemingly has almost as many sexual assault allegations as Trump. And yet, not only was this not a deal breaker for the Democratic Party, but they continue to promote him and push his stuff and continue to slag anybody else that comes along. And then when they found out that he was going to lose, their talking heads went out to try to spin, because they completely misunderstand what's actually happening. And in this case, I think it's as simple as socialism is more popular than sexual predators. Next. Who knew? Who could have imagined that people were starting to get exhausted of the same old status quo? Oh, I did something wrong, but please forgive me. I know what I'm doing. Put me in charge. I will always vote for the best candidate available. The perfect is the enemy of the good. We all know that. If you hold your breath for perfection, nothing good is going to come of that. Democrat or otherwise, I don't care if they're Republican, Green, Libertarian, Independent, no party, tailgate party, I don't care. If they are the best candidate for the position that has a viable chance at actually getting elected, that's who I'm going to vote for. But the party leadership, from the Democratic Party in particular, because it has great power, and along with that comes, what's that saying? Yes, great responsibility. They need to be held responsible for their inaction and their complicity, both with Cuomo and with the current Trump administration. The Democratic Party is tanking what should be the easiest and most obvious retaking of government control in the history of our country. I'm not optimistic. I'm not hopeful. I'm just staying as optimistic and as hopeful as I can, all things considered. So, best of luck to Zoran Mamdani. I fucking hate your religion, but I like a lot of your policies, sir. And I'm optimistic that you might turn out to be a man of your word, actually working to make some change. And if I were in New York, I would be voting for you in the general election coming up. Because the only other option seems to be fascism and abandonment of law and abandonment of truth and sticking with the status quo that doesn't oppose it. Revolution is coming at home and abroad. In other news while I was gone, in a predictable violation of the War Powers Act of 1973, which the Republicans dismiss as irrelevant because they claim it's unconstitutional, though there's no reason to think that. Oh, yes, there is, because they own the Supreme Court, and if it gets challenged, the Supreme Court is likely to say that the War Powers Act is unconstitutional, because of course they fucking will. The administration, following the overreaching lead of previous administrations, Republican and Democrat, have now bombed Iran. Now, let me say this at the outset. I'm an 8.5-year veteran of the United States Navy. I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Provide Comfort, and a number of other operations as well. I've been to the Middle East. I am not remotely a policy expert, a foreign relations expert. I'm not an expert on international law. I'm not an expert on the treaties that we have. None of that. And my experience during Desert Shield, Desert Storm does not impact what's actually happening now at all. But I'm not just some rando. This is chaos that is caused by incompetence. My position is, just like almost everybody else's, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I don't think anybody disagrees with that apart from the Ayatollah and his flunkies. So let's not pretend that people objecting to this are just okay with Iran getting a nuclear weapon. The issue here is, how do you go about preventing that? And when you have incompetence filling your government, chaos is what happens. Trump tore up a nuclear deal that wasn't perfect, but was working. Trump also got played by Bibi Netanyahu into showing that he's a tough guy, because the United States is the only one that has the weapons that could actually do what we did. He ignored and dismissed his own director of national intelligence, who, by the way, predicted this. Kamala Harris also predicted this, but I don't want to even count that, because everybody's saying, oh, if you elect them, we're going to war. Oh, if you elect them, we're going to war. By the way, I know we're not in war. War hasn't been declared. I'm talking about the military action that almost certainly violates the War Powers Act. His director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, in 2019 tweeted this, quote, Trump says he doesn't want war with Iran, but that's exactly what he wants, because that's exactly what Saudi Arabia, Netanyahu, Al-Qaeda, Bolton, Haley, and all the other neocons and neolibs wants. It's what he put first, not America. And yet, despite saying this in 2019, she's working for him. She was saying that they did not have the capabilities that he claimed that they did. He said she's wrong on television. Then she turns around and changes her statement. Did the director of national intelligence just not have good enough intelligence? Or did she fall in fucking line like all the rest of them? These people know the delusional idiot that they're working for, the dangerous, corrupt regime that they are working alongside, and they are completely complicit. They know exactly the monster they're working for, and they keep working for him. I'm sure somewhere in the back of their heads, it's better that I'm here just in case it gets too bad, rather than have someone who's truly a sycophant genuflecting to the new king. I'm supremely confident that that's what's going through so many of their heads. You're wrong. It's only better to have you there if you're actually going to do something. If you fall in line like everybody else, you are no better than anybody else. You are complicit. These people are traitors who must be opposed, voted out, removed from office, tried and convicted and imprisoned for war crimes and treason. So we bombed Iran. Trump then goes and claims that we obliterated their abilities. Turns out, today we're hearing that's not the case. We might have slowed them down 3 to 6 months. Because it seems that we didn't quite do the damage we thought we'd do. So now not only did we show what our bombers are capable of, traveling from Missouri to Iran, as we're the only one with these particular weapons, showing exactly what their capabilities are to enemies, and showing that they're not up to speed. They're not up to snuff. They're not capable of doing the job. And if they had been, All they do then is dig the bunkers deeper. Oh, wait, these weapons are only effective this many feet underground? We'll just dig deeper. So it turns out it didn't really accomplish what he said it accomplished. Then he claims there's a ceasefire, which evidently both sides immediately violated. And he's tossing out instructions to Israel on Truth Social. Turn your planes around. Do you not have a fucking phone? Of course you have a phone. You know why he's doing this? It's not for Israel. It's for his base. It is 100% performative. It is, oh, let me show them I'm doing stuff, and I'm going to stand up and yell at Israel, and Israel's going to do what I say. It is absolute grandstanding bullshit. Don't raise gas prices. I'm sorry. When gas prices were a problem before, by the way, groceries that are record high as well, the war in Ukraine hasn't ended, the annihilation in Gaza hasn't ended. None of these things have been fixed. But when gas prices were a problem before, it was, well, it's the president's fault. It's always the president's fault. You took actions that caused Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil has to travel through. And then you think going on Truth Social saying, don't you dare raise gas prices. Everybody stop, don't do it. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Trump. I was just getting ready to raise gas prices. But since you came at me on Truth Social, I just won't. Idiots. Claimed there was a ceasefire, then said we can call it the 12-day war. Ooh. I think we're beyond 12 days now. He hasn't ended that or anything else. Peace in the Middle East isn't something that an idiot celebrity working with an alcoholic Fox News anchor and a bunch of fucking sheep can actually achieve. Who knew? Meanwhile, the person keeping us safe from terrorist retaliation is a 20-something with zero experience whose previous job was a grocery store clerk. Incompetence and not being qualified for your position is a fucking virtue in the Trump administration. Let's keep grabbing celebrities off Fox News and putting them in positions where they have access to all the power and all the secrets and all of everything. How do we keep Americans safe in an environment like that? Is this what you guys voted for? You MAGA president of peace Trump voters? The guy who called in a few weeks ago to lecture me about how Trump's the president of peace? Still think so? Call me back. Is this what you guys voted for? How do those liberal tears taste? Seem to be your primary focus. Oh, I can't wait to taste those liberal tears. Let me ask you, do those liberal tears taste as good as the tears of Iris Diana Monterosa Lemus? Oh, who's that? This is a pregnant woman in Tennessee who had lived here for ages, who was picked up and detained by ICE while she was pregnant, kept explaining to the ICE agents that she was having stomach pain, abdominal pain, that something was wrong, and that she needed medical treatment, even begged to be immediately deported to Guatemala so that she could get the prenatal treatment that she needed. She sat there for 3 days with a dead fetus in her as she ate food off the ground in that facility. In the United States, in Tennessee, under this administration, until she miscarried in chains in front of the ICE agents. Are those the fucking liberal tears you guys wanted? Now we have to worry about retaliation at home. Not from ICBMs. We haven't pissed those people off yet. But we can, since Russia's in bed with Iran. Well, we have to protect ourselves from terrorist attacks that the grocery store clerk fails to protect us from. And we do this in a country where the rule of law has been thrown out, where due process has been thrown out, where the president has been crowned king and will take over the National Guard. They know people, they know citizens of this country are going to start by protesting, because we already have. And they know that that's going to ramp up to a rebellion, because the protesting isn't having enough of an effect to impact a significant change. And so they're setting the precedent to implement martial law. Let me ask you, what prevents a sleeper cell from dressing up as ICE agents, wearing masks, and making people disappear? Just like the obvious Proud Boys our government has hired and put into ICE uniforms and covered up with masks as they make people disappear all around the country. When you don't have to identify yourself, when you throw out due process and the rule of law, the guys with guns in a uniform, I don't have any way to verify that their badge is real. I don't have any way to verify whether they're working for the government officially or not. There's nothing to prevent the ill-intentioned from masking up and entering facilities and planting their explosives in retaliation. What prevents anyone from doing anything when the law has been thrown out? When the best intelligence is ignored in favor of, as J.D. Vance said, their gut instincts. These people must be held accountable. I'm not calling for violence, but those discussions are happening all the time. I hear them. Ooh, when is violence warranted? I get asked all the time, when is violence warranted? How long do we wait? When is it too late? Is it too late now? How do you justify a revolution? How do you justify physical violence? I'm not there yet, but other people are. Because they're realizing that policy talk and rhetoric and idealistic pearl clutching and making promises that we all know you're not going to keep cannot accomplish this. The other side doesn't give a shit if they keep the promises. They know they elected a liar. As I said before, this entire administration and everyone complicit knows that this is corrupt, knows that this is wrong, knows that this is in violation of the Constitution, knows that this is in violation of international war crimes laws, in many cases, with what they're doing, and they are complicit. They must be voted out, impeached, removed from office, tried, and imprisoned for war crimes and treason. So, John, how was your week?
Yeah, my week was all right. I mean, the whole progression of this quote unquote 12-day war has been pretty funny because you had there's I can't remember the dipshit's name. He's a congressman, but he apparently suggested Trump or nominated Trump for a peace prize, the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah,
and then it got taken back today. So that was pretty funny, in my opinion. And he really wants that peace prize too, because Obama got one.
Oh yeah. He made a tweet or a truth or whatever the fuck. I'm just going to always call them tweets. That was like, I won't get the Nobel Peace Prize even though I did this. I won't get the Nobel Peace Prize even though I did this. I won't get the Nobel Peace. It was this big long, mommy, please give me the Nobel Peace Prize. Please. So of course he does something, and literally, I told you, I predicted it. I was wrong. I didn't predict it that morning. I predicted it the night before, because when we got done with Rat Day, Arden and I were standing in the shower when we saw the news of a ceasefire. And I looked at her and I said, someone will nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize over this. And she just looked at me and rolled her eyes. And the fucking next day, of course, it happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, luckily, not luckily, but that supposed peace treaty or whatnot only lasted like 2 hours, right? So, I mean, they jumped the gun just a little bit there. Maybe wait until like the actual peace comes before you start saying, "Oh, Trump is great."
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you saw this, but Trump posted a parody song that's it parodies that Bob Baram song from like the 60s,
Oh, is it
but it
Bomb Bomb
was
Iran? Because that's old. Yeah.
but he posted that on his True Social along with a bunch of bombers that were just dropping bombs, and it made it seem like they were dropping bombs on Iran. But the thing that really got me was the fact that at the very end of the song, it talks about turning Iran into a parking lot, and it's like, isn't that calling for a genocide? Like, is the president of the United States posting something that's positively talking about like committing a genocide on the Iranian people who from what I've heard, most don't support what the government's doing or whatever in this particular respect. I guess I shouldn't say most. I've heard that some non-zero amount of people are definitely not in favor of it. So I mean, it seems rather crazy to me for like a president to like post that song on any kind of social media.
Yeah, it's wild. I tell you, we've got a call right now if you're ready.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because Tim is calling from New York and he wants to talk about why he supports Trump, specifically immigration laws. Tim, why don't you believe in due process?
I wouldn't say that I don't believe in due process.
I would.
However, I think that it's important that our country enforces its immigration laws, and I don't think it's fair to taxpayers that we should have to pay the bill for illegal migrants.
Okay. So first of all, you don't know what you're talking about, but what's actually happening here is there is no due process. They are deporting people with no criminal records. They're deporting people with no due process. They're going to Home Depot and rounding up workers while they said we're going to get the criminals, the bad people out. That's not who they're going after, and that's not what's happening. How can you still support this? Now, at least they've said that since this incident in Tennessee, they're going to stop rounding up as many pregnant immigrants so they don't keep having embarrassing miscarriages in the facilities. But why are you okay with them running around, rounding up people without showing who they are, who's arresting them, what the charge is, any concern of their immigration status, and the information that we get from those who are monitoring this show that most of them have no criminal record at all, and we're not even sure who some of them are. Why are you okay with that?
Well, I'd like to ask, what is your alternative given the fact that we have tens of millions of illegal immigrants?
You don't get to ask my alternative. I'm asking you why you're okay with it. Because even if I didn't have an alternative, which I do, the previous policies were not working, but there were changes. You're saying that you're okay with and support the dumbest, least honest, 34-time felon, 2-time impeached, batshit crazy president who puts people who are not qualified in every possible position of power, violates and tears up a nuclear agreement with Iran, sides with dictators, and then bombs Iran while sending Proud Boys out pretending to be ICE agents in masks to round up immigrants. Also, you don't have to pay for something that you're probably not paying for anyway, and you don't care if they get due process. Why is that? How do we know?
I think that we need to deport. We need to deport a lot of people.
Tim, how do you know? Like, if they come and grab you right now, what do you think will happen to you?
I mean, I'm going to show them my birth certificate.
Do you have your birth certificate on you? And by the way, you know they're ending.
I do.
You know they're ending birthright citizenship, right?
I mean, that hasn't gone into that hasn't even been legislated or
not yet.
Not an issue in the Supreme Court currently. Yeah. It's been talked about.
Well, Tim, I'm kind of curious. Now, what Matt laid out is something that really happens currently right now. The ICE agents show up and they just take people off the street. You don't have, like, unless you're carrying around your birth certificate, in your back pocket, you're not going to get a chance to like show it to them for them to just totally disregard whatever you're saying and arrest you anyways. So my first question is, do you know what due process is? Because I find that in this conversation, a lot of people that are for this, for the mass deportation of individuals, they don't know what due process is. Can you tell me basically what it is?
Well, it differs. It differs based on whether it's a civil or a criminal infraction.
No.
I mean,
No.
basically, okay. Well, you know what? You explain it to me.
Well, due process is where you get to speak to a lawyer and you have a trial in order to assess whether or not you have even committed a crime. This is to prevent the government from just snatching people up and doing whatever they want with them, putting them in jail for umpteen years or whatever, or in this particular case, deporting them to an El Salvadorian hellhole. So, like, that's what due process is. So,
and by the Constitution,
point,
sorry, John, by the Constitution, you don't have to be a citizen to get due process. Everybody gets due process. This is the basic groundwork of the rule of law. Please continue, John. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, in Matt's example here of like, what would you do? You said I would show them my birth certificate. That in the very case that we're trying to argue about right now, you don't get to have that option. So you're literally yanked off the street. You're summarily decided like this is some kind of bad Judge Dredd comic that the ICE agents are judge, jury, and essentially executioner at this point, and they get to ship you off to El Salvador. So at what point in that is there due process, and when would you be able to show your birth certificate so that you can prove your citizenship?
Yep.
Well, I don't know if I totally believe you guys when you're saying there's not a process, because even Kilmar Abrego, who you guys bring up so much, I mean, liberals tend to bring up so much. I mean, they went through this whole thing about there was documentation.
But Tim, did Kilmar?
All these other people aren't getting anything.
Tim, before Kilmar got deported to the El Salvadorian hellhole, did he have a hearing to determine whether or not he should be deported?
There were administrative.
That's not a hearing, Tim. Tim, we're really trying to help you here. So first of all, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is the prime example, because he actually had a court order that dictated he could not be deported to El Salvador. Even if he was wound up being deported, they would have to deport him somewhere else. He was picked up and deported to El Salvador. Multiple courts, right up to the Supreme Court of the United States, determined that he did not have due process. There was no hearing, and there was nothing charging him with a crime, and no process at all. And so when they finally got around to bringing him back, they put charges on him in Tennessee. And if you go look at the facts of this, he was driving someone from point A to point B, and they're accusing him of trafficking. That's fine. It seems to be bullshit given the evidence we've seen, but it's okay to charge him with that crime and then prosecute him for that crime and then potentially deport him if he's found guilty. But none of that happened the first time, and none of this happened with almost anybody else. You are saying it's more important that we get people out of the country, even if we don't know who they are, whether they're here legally, which has happened, whether or not they are in the process, nothing. Who do you, like John was asking you, who do you think you show your birth certificate to? And why would it matter?
Why would it matter? I have to ask you guys a question. How?
No, you have to answer these questions.
Illegal immigrants.
No, Tim, no, you're not going to sit here and quiz me when you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about with regard to due process. You said that you had a solution if they came and picked you up, which is to show your birth certificate. Now, most people don't have their birth certificates. I don't have mine. I'm a citizen by birth, and I'm an 8-year fucking veteran of the Navy. I can show them my driver's license, but if they don't ask and they just scoop me up and deport me, then I don't get to do anything. Your birth certificate isn't worth the paper you printed it out on without due process. If there's no due process, your paperwork is irrelevant. How do you fix that?
How do I fix that? Well, you think that if you sat there and told them, I grew up here, you speak. I mean, obviously, you speak with a plainly American
My God,
accent.
are you really going down this racist piece of shit line where you think that you can detect who's here? It is fucking racist, okay. And you think you can detect who's here legally and who's not based on how good they speak English. Well, let's put you to a test, Tim. You want to go take an English test and see where you come out? I bet money, Tim.
You're asking me. I bet money, Tim.
That you don't have any English training beyond high school. I'd bet serious money on that.
Oh, okay. Well, you lose the bet. Anyway.
Okay, prove it. What English training? What English training do you have beyond high school?
I have a bachelor's degree.
In English?
English?
No, but I took English classes.
Oh.
Wait. Well, so, like,
what English training do you have? Do you have a college degree?
Not at all.
You don't.
Not at all. And yet I know way more about all of this shit than you do. Like, I bet you there's very few subjects outside of working expertise that I don't know more about than you, despite the fact that I don't have any advanced degrees. You didn't even know what due process was. You don't know how you could show that you're a citizen. You don't understand that without due process, it doesn't matter if you're a citizen, and that's the problem. You should be embarrassed being this uninformed and proudly calling in to defend.
Can you tell me
people when you have no way of knowing who's
to handle 50 million illegal immigrants?
Try and talk over me all you want. It's never, ever going to fucking work for you, Tim. I'm still in Zen mode.
Do you want me to
can't rattle me because you don't understand what the fuck you're talking about. So answer my question.
Well, how do we afford?
Answer my question. Answer my question, Tim. Which is, who do you think you show your birth certificate to when they come and throw you in a van and take you away?
Well, obviously, you're telling me that you don't think I can do that. So it's a rhetorical question.
Well, congratulations, Tim. Rhetorical. That's a good SAT word there. Why didn't you think of that before you tried to say that you would just show them your fucking birth certificate? Which I also don't believe you carry around with you.
Okay. I'd have my license.
So do I. So did some of the people who got picked up.
Yeah,
I would tell them it's filed at a certain city hall where my birth certificate is filed. Did they tell them that?
And what do you think they're going to do, Tim? If they're not going to follow due process, they don't give a fuck where your birth certificate is. They're not required to go demonstrate that you're even who they say you are.
If you believe the most extreme and egregious cases are the norm, which I don't.
No, Tim. I'm not talking about any cases, extreme, egregious, or otherwise. I'm talking about what due process means and the fact that it has been thrown out the window. It is no longer required, and you don't get to say, "Oh, I get due process," when you're denying due process to others.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain how we can reasonably give due process in your vision of it to 50 or to tens of millions of illegal immigrants at once?
No, you can't do it at once. How dare you set up a ridiculous scenario? Can you explain how I can flap my wings and fly? Why do you add an at-once restriction on there? You want 47 million immigrants to get out of the country right now, you fucking bigot?
Yes. Not because of their race, but because they're here illegally. I don't care if they're white.
You don't know that they're here legally, Tim. There are 47 million immigrants representing about 14% of the population at last check. And most of them are here legally. And then most of them get here on visas and then overstay the visas. They're not sneaking in with drugs and 25 pregnant women so that they can get their birthright citizenship. They're overstaying visas is the primary way they get here. And you want to round up 47 million of them right now when they are the people who are working to make your life better, paying taxes, contributing to the system. What do you do? And when did you serve?
The House Budgetary Committee,
if I can push back, I want you to answer, but I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe Matt can correct me on this, because I feel like, you said that you want to deport, all the undocumented peoples from America. That has a number of different issues. For one, the labor market impact, economic growth and GDP impacts to it, tax revenue impacts and everything. So we could go into that if we really wanted to. But the thing that I wanted to focus on was, I do think though that your motivations for this are a bit racist, even if you don't, in the front of your mind know that you're being a bit racist about it. And to prove my point, I just want to point back to how you said, oh, well, I pretty much just look American, I sound American, therefore I am American. And, for anybody that doesn't sound what you think is American or look like what you think is American, apparently that, the ICE picking them up and illegally detaining them and deporting them, you would consider that to be an okay thing, or are you saying that you support due process for all of them, for everybody that's rounded up and that doesn't sound, act, or look exactly like you?
I don't know that due process has as much of a precise term as you guys might think that it does.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, this is defined in legal, this is defined in the Constitution.
Yeah, it's in the 14th. It's in the 14th Amendment, Tim. You should be embarrassed for being willing to look this stupid publicly. Like, no slight. I mean, it's one thing to not know something, but when we explain to you what's going on and how this is defined in the 14th fucking Amendment, and then you try to say, well, I don't think it's as clearly defined as you are. I no longer believe that you're an honest interlocutor. I think you're just a troll prank calling to try to stir up stuff. I don't believe you're genuinely as stupid as you are.
Can you ask me why I think what I think? So could we, let's say, could we move beyond due process? Can I ask you other questions? Why? Let's say if you thought I didn't support due process.
No, Tim, you can't move beyond due process. You can't move beyond due process, because without due process, nothing else matters.
Tim, would you agree that all supposed undocumented peoples that are being rounded up and deported should receive full due process to determine whether or not they should be deported?
You'd have to more specifically explain what you mean, and you mean see an attorney.
It's really easy, Tim.
Trial, but it's really easy.
It's really easy, Tim. I'm going to line up 10 people in front of you who, according to you, don't look American. How do you tell which of those 10 is here illegally and deport them versus which ones are here legally and get to stay? What is your process for that?
Well, at the very start of it, wouldn't you be able to explain the things that you went through to become an American citizen?
Tim, who do you get to explain it to without the process? What is your process there are 10 people in front of you. 5 of them should get the fuck out according to you, and 5 of them should stay according to you. I want to know, what is your process for telling those 2 groups apart?
I just told you. You would be able to explain how you became an American.
Tim, do you not think that is called due process? When you actually ask someone to demonstrate that they are who they say they are, and they then provide the answer, and then you verify that answer by some due process? And
for plenty of them, the answer is no, they're not here legally, and you still want them to stay.
Tim, I'm done. I'm going to let John continue to talk to you. I want John to continue to talk to you. I'm maintaining my zen, because you are either the most dishonest troll bigot piece of shit I've talked to in months, or you are so clueless and you are so entrenched in this that I don't think I can be helpful, because you seem to want due process, but only for some, and only if you can. It's like, oh, I can tell you what I did to become a citizen. Do you not think that there are people here illegally who couldn't say, oh yeah, I became a citizen, I went and took this test, it's down there at City Hall? And then the next step would be to go see if that's true. That's fucking called due process, you dolt. John, I give up.
Okay, so Tim, as far as immigrants go, as far as undocumented peoples go, just so you know where I stand on the idea of deporting those that have been proven to be criminals or have criminal activity or something like that, or they participate in criminal activity here or whatnot. Of course, that requires due process in order to determine that. You don't just get to size somebody up just by the sight of them and determine whether or not they are criminals. Also, if you're going to go the route of saying that, well, all quote unquote illegal immigrants are criminals because they have broken the law or something like that, it seems to me like you would want to make that kind of case for just all criminals. Maybe I don't know, but I think that the due process thing is pretty important for determining who should be and who shouldn't be deported. So it's not that and I'm not going to speak for Matt, but I don't think that all undocumented persons should be deported. I think that there's a small subset that should be, but we still have to go through due process in order to determine that.
Okay, well, can I respond to your, claims that they're helpful to the economy? I don't think that that's true. I think they cost Americans billions of dollars. And there was a study by the House Committee on the Budget.
Fine. We'll go down this route since you don't want to, since you would rather wipe your ass with the Constitution and not provide all peoples inside the United States with due process. We could just admit that you don't care about the Constitution, but we could talk about numbers if you wanted to. I'm an engineer, so I love numbers. How much in taxes have undocumented immigrants contributed? Usually annually.
Well, they pay billions in income tax, but they don't pay a lot of other taxes.
$11 billion in taxes annually, which is not, I don't know what you mean by that, because it's $11 billion in taxes, both federal and state and city taxes. So it's like taxes at all levels. They contribute $11 billion to it. What do you think? Where do you think they're being a drain on the American economy?
Well, here we go. Using the National Academy's estimate of immigrants' net fiscal impact by education level, we estimate that the lifetime fiscal drain for each illegal immigrant is about $68,000. Although this estimate comes with some caveats, so I don't know every detail, but that's what they estimate.
Some caveats. Yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's college level English right there. Caveats. Okay. You're a bad motherfucker there. He's got some caveats for you.
So, okay. So I can, but at the end of the day, it's $68,000 net drain per illegal immigrant, including the taxes they pay.
And where? So you're just saying that.
I can read specifics.
Yeah. If you can give me specifics, like what specifically are the undocumented people's like getting? Because like undocumented people can't like get tax returns or returns on their taxes or anything like that. They essentially work and they pay into the system, and they're unable to get any kind of money out of the system. Undocumented people usually can't like get Medicaid or anything like that. And there's a lot of different ways in which they do pay taxes, like state and city taxes are paid whenever they purchase items. And then federal taxes, they some undocumented people, they what they'll do is they'll get like a business. They'll start a business, which it's actually one of the largest. Let's see. According to my research here, many undocumented immigrants are business owners who create jobs and contribute to the economy. They create businesses. They use the 10 for the business in order to pay their taxes. So, please go ahead.
Well, here we go. In addition to consuming welfare, illegal immigration makes significant use of public education. It's estimated that illegal immigrants in public schools created 68.1 billion in costs in 2019, which is more than they pay into in federal income tax, more than they pay into in Social Security and Medicaid, more than they pay into it with income tax, I believe.
Should we do the math on how much Tim contributes and uses?
I mean, Tim, undocumented persons also use roads. Are you going to like somehow figure up a monetary value for that and also attribute that to them? Like, I get it. Undocumented kids go to school, and you really fucking hate it when undocumented little Mexicans go to school. I get it.
Well,
I like how you didn't deny
the numbers.
that.
What do you? The numbers altogether say that there's a fiscal drain on the tax base. How is that fair to American people?
Prove you're an American person, and I'll answer.
So you don't have an answer, and you want to evade the question.
So you're dishonest fuck who lies when I said I would give you a fucking answer if you could prove you were an American person. Mm-hmm. You want to pretend that I don't have an answer. Wow, how convenient.
Are you still there?
Yeah, we're here. I'm wondering, where did you say that you're getting this information from, that you're reading off of your script there?
I'm reading this from hold on a second, the House Budgetary Committee, I believe. This is a title.
Journal of
The Impact of Illegal Immigration on Social Services, by the Director of Research for the Center of Immigration Studies.
You're a great researcher.
Thank you, sir.
The Center for Immigration Studies, I feel like, let's see, they claim to be independent, nonpartisan, founded in 1985. I'm not sure. I remember hearing about this Center for Immigration Studies. They claim to be nonpartisan, but I feel like they're not. Hold on. Sorry. You're reading off of a script, and I haven't researched this particular script before, so it's going to take me just one quick second.
I'm wondering, though, even if they were all terrible criminals who were leeching off the society, so that,
I don't think they are.
I'm sorry, I don't know why you're even speaking, Tim. You should really stop talking until I'm done. I guarantee you that. But I'm wondering, because, if you throw me off my track, it's just going to bust my zen, and we don't want to do that. So even if they were all here illegally and leeching off the system, I still don't know how you tell them from somebody else. I still don't know why you're willing to violate their constitutional rights. And you have no way of showing whose constitutional rights you're defending. But also, Tim doesn't know anything about this. He's done some chat GPT and some web search and found some stuff that he's a bigot. And so he's looking for information that supports his bigotry. And he's willing to throw everything else out, including World War III, because he doesn't like that there are some people here illegally possibly contributing more to society than he is.
This is a societal issue, not an individual issue.
Okay, well, hold on. Okay, so I'm doing... yeah. So I'm doing some reading on this. Okay, I've got a couple of things pulled up here. First of all, the Center for Immigration Studies is considered broadly, broadly considered a right-wing anti-immigration think tank. Even though it disputes this label, but it's very obvious in the information that it puts out. It's very anti-immigration and is very decidedly right-wing. The Southern Poverty Law Center designates this group as a hate group. due to its ties to nativism, its founders' white nationalist associations, and a history of promoting or amplifying racist and misleading anti-immigrant narratives. So that's for one. For two, moving on to the numbers, just because I crunched these this little search query out here in just a second, but like on a net annual cost, the actual cost, and that's if you include the amount of taxes that undocumented immigrants actually pay into the system on a yearly basis, the cost to the American taxpayer is $957. That's it. And that amount roughly translates to about a little bit less than $9,000 per undocumented immigrant per year. Now that's per year. The $68,000 number that you mentioned is actually over their entire lifetime. So over a lifetime, one analysis suggests the average undocumented immigrant imposes a physical drain of $68,000. So that's over their entire life. So basically, for their entire life, you would have to figure up the $11 billion, right, that they contribute in taxes federally each year, and then you would have to total all of that up and then do the numbers on that. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like this is the problem. Reading from a prepared statement from a white nationalist, right wing, anti-immigration think tank is, you end up repeating this like really stupid shit.
See, if you'd have done your due diligence, you'd not only know what due process is, you'd know how to pronounce caveat.
Well, can I ask you guys what would be, because you do support deportation of criminals, I guess, but not of non-criminals?
I support deportation,
what you consider non-criminals?
Period. I support deportation, period. What I don't support is an end to due process. We explained this to you.
Okay. And how is that feasible with tens of millions of people?
I'm sorry.
What you consider due process?
No, Tim. Tim, it's not what I consider due process. It's not what I consider due process. It's what the Constitution defines as due process. I'm so tired of every time. And you are not an honest interlocutor, Tim, and you are not here to learn. Because if you actually gave a shit about any of this, you would have said, wow, I didn't understand due process. I guess I'm not familiar with the 14th Amendment and the history of constitutional law. I guess there is a problem where you at least have to be able to identify the person that you want to detain or deport and show that they've actually done something. You just want an instant solution. You have been conned into thinking, shut up. You have been conned into thinking that we need to get rid of 40 some odd million people or 14 million people or whatever right now, instantly, and we need a magic thing to do it. Well, that's not happening, even by putting Proud Boys in masks and rounding up workers at fucking Home Depot. Do better.
Hello?
Goodbye.
Hello?
Okay, have a good one.
Tim, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Tim, I get it that you want to deport all of the brown people from America.
No,
but you asked Matt
of the United States.
So you would support deporting white people if they were like from Britain?
Yes. Yes, we need to enforce immigration to have a secure country. What if 100 million Chinese people decided to rush the gate? And I don't say that because of race. I say that because there's a lot of people in China.
What if a trillion Canadians came across the border right now?
Canadians don't think they have 30 million people in their whole country.
Wow.
We should deport them too.
So here's the other thing that lets me know that you are absolutely dishonest and nobody should believe you, is that every single time you have an opportunity to say, oh, I hadn't thought of that or I haven't considered that, you ignore it and just do, oh, here's the next invented fictional fucking scenario. What if China decides to invade? What if this happens? What if this happens? We can't solve it instantly. We don't have a way to solve it instantly. We don't have a way to solve it instantly. What's your solution, smart guy? You are either dumber than Trump, genuinely, which is incredibly difficult to do, or you are sitting here calling in because you think we need callers and you want to stir up some stuff for a good clip. And I guarantee you gave us a good clip, and for that I'm grateful, because the title of your clip is going to include the word caveat as I yeet you out of this fucking place for being dishonest as fuck.
Well, I don't see what you're. Well, we had people rushing the gates basically under Biden.
Yeah, but okay, so Tim, here's my. So you want a solution for, like, deporting the 10 million or providing due process for all of the undocumented immigrants right now, and that is a monumental task. But I think the allowing undocumented persons to live and work in the United States, in a legal way, is probably the best option, because that allows the courts enough time to process all of the claims for people to be here. It also allows them to work, pay their taxes, and be able to collect on social services. But I mean, they're also paying into the system just as much as any other American does. So, like, I feel like that's a better one, the gradual provision of due process, so that we respect our Constitution. But you seem to think that it's very dichotomous, in that it's either all or just nothing. Like, either all of the immigrants, at one time, in a very childish sort of understanding of it, all of them at one time have to be provided due process, or none of them should get due process and they should just be kicked out. Would that be an accurate summary of the bullshit that you're saying?
Ideally, everyone would get their day in court, but I just don't see how there's any feasible way to give tens of
that doesn't matter
to people.
That's not what you're not understanding. No, Tim, that's what you're not understanding. Feasibility does not have is not a factor here, right? Feasibility does not matter when it comes to upholding the Constitution. Do you agree?
I mean, was Abraham Lincoln suspending habeas corpus?
Congratulations. Now Tim's whataboutism has gone all the way back to Abraham Lincoln. Tim, you are the weakest link.
Sure, but you can't say why this is not equitable to that.
Yes, I can.
Equal to that.
It's a violation of the Constitution, and you're saying it's not feasible to follow the Constitution, so let's go ahead and violate it, which means you need to be rounded up next, because you should not get any more due process than you are willing to grant to the people you want to deport. For all I know, you're fucking Canadian.
But you can't. You won't explain how it's feasible, because you don't really care about deporting illegal immigrants.
Tim,
you don't want to do it.
Acknowledged, Tim, we've acknowledged. We've acknowledged that feasibility isn't the issue here. You don't get to throw out the Constitution just because something is hard. Just like you don't get to ignore taking one more English class because it was too hard to learn how to fucking pronounce caveat, which is, granted, not originally an English word. You don't get to give up on things just because they're difficult, because when you give up on things when they're difficult, that's how you end up so stupid that you call in and throw out the Constitution, because it's too difficult for you to accept that maybe there isn't an easy solution. Maybe there's a lengthy, complex, long-term, messy solution. But you don't get to throw out people's fucking rights, Tim, not even yours. Despite the fact that I despise what you stand for, I still think that you should have access to due process. And I think everybody who you're willing to deny due process to should also have due process. I'm the one standing on ethical grounds, affording rights to everyone, and you are willing to deny rights to people you don't know, that you cannot prove have done anything wrong. You do not care about due process, which is the only way you can do it, just so that you, I'm going to bet, well, never mind. It doesn't matter. Just so that you don't have to pay for their health care.
Right. Tim doesn't want to provide, kids with food, and that's kind of sad. But now, Tim, you mentioned Abraham Lincoln, and just for, the audience and probably your edification here. So while Abraham Lincoln did suspend the writ of habeas corpus, it was a highly controversial act that he did it. Many people disagreed with him, to include the Supreme Court. But the biggest difference between that situation and our current situation is that in Abraham Lincoln's case, the Congress actually did pass the Habeas Corpus Suspension Act in March of 1863. Came 2 years after Lincoln ordered it, which I would disagree with ordering that. Like, I think that the Constitution should be followed, and the correct constitutional process is for Congress to pass, an act or a law of some kind that would effectively do that. I don't think the president should have the unilateral ability to just shit on the Constitution. So that would be one act that Abraham Lincoln did that I would have disagreed with. But I also disagree with Trump right now in basically ignoring the Supreme Court's orders, ignoring the right to due process, and all this other stuff. So I mean, like, I disagree with both. So I wondered, where would you like to take? Oh, go ahead.
I wondered, Tim, are you a member of the Proud Boys?
No.
How do we know that?
You're gonna have to take my word for it.
Well,
I'm not gonna get deported for saying I'm not.
No. Do you think that Proud Boys are currently working as ICE agents and gathering up immigrants?
I have no clue. I don't know that much about that
I know
organization.
You have no clue.
Other than
Tim, we established 32 minutes ago that you have no clue. But if you go and look into it, when you see these individuals dressing up in ICE outfits, do you think masked people who don't identify themselves should be allowed to grab people and take them out of their homes and their places of work and off the street and move them to detaining facilities?
Well, I mean, that's a lot of organizations.
Tim?
That are men with masks.
Do you think masked people who don't identify themselves should be permitted to abduct people and take them to holding facilities? Yes or no?
There are certain other cases that allow for that.
Tim, I'm going to ask you one final time. Yes or no, do you think masked individuals who do not identify themselves should be permitted to abduct people and take them to holding facilities? Yes or no?
Sometimes.
Cool. Then what are you going to do when I put on a mask and come to your home and abduct you?
Well, I would probably fight back because I know there's no reason for that.
No, you wouldn't.
Tim, are you saying that you punch an ICE agent in the face? Is that what you're saying right now?
Bullshit.
Tim, that's
I have no reason to be deported.
Oh, that's the same thing for many people who got deported. And you know how we tell? It's called due process, dipshit.
The handful that you will fixate on.
No, I'm not fixating on a fucking handful. I'm fixating on the rights afforded us by the Constitution. The Constitution I swore an oath to defend. Where did you fucking serve? I bet you didn't.
Yeah.
I bet you didn't, did you? You didn't.
I bet.
See, yeah. I'm the one that took an oath to defend the Constitution, and you're the one shitting on it. Fuck you, Tim. You don't get to shit on the Constitution.
So being a soldier makes you a superior American?
Yes, it makes me superior to you, not because I was in the military, but because I'm willing to defend the Constitution that protects us both. While you shit on it, while you shit on it while you shit on it as a matter of convenience because you are stupid and lazy.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Mr. No Wars in the Middle East because you defended Kuwait. That makes you superior American to me. But I want to defend the borders of the United States where we live.
Tim, I'm going to mute you because you didn't listen. I'm not superior because I served. I'm superior, and I'm superior as an American because I'm defending the Constitution while you are shitting on it. The Constitution that protects you and me and Abrego Garcia and everybody else. I'm defending the Constitution, and you are literally, admittedly, repeatedly uninformed and too dense to acknowledge what the Constitution even says. And instead, you keep going back to, oh, you did this. Oh, what else did this? What about this? What about this? Oh, you're just picking out a handful. But it doesn't matter. The Constitution is the law of the land. It's what gives you your rights. It's what protects you. It's what says that because you were born here, you're a citizen, something they're trying to change. The Constitution's 14th Amendment is what guarantees that police officers can't just arrest you and take you into holding without following due process. It also is what guarantees that masked individuals who may or may not be law enforcement can't swoop in and abduct you. You're sitting there with 23 buckets of white fucking American privilege, confident that you've done nothing to deserve being arrested for, deserve being detained for, deserve being deported for. You're sitting there in your supreme confidence. This can't happen to me because I'm a real American. Well, so am I, motherfucker. So am I. And so are some of the people who are being deported. You know that old adage of it's better for 100 guilty men to go free than one innocent man to go to prison? You're doing the opposite. And you're doing it because you can't see a way to magically wave a wand and fix the immigration problem. It took decades for this to get as broken as it is. It took a decade for you to be misinformed and lied to about the reality to where you are just quoting white supremacist glurge standing there in opposition to immigration. And then you call in to say you're okay with President Trump because he's willing to send masked, unidentified people to scoop people up without due process and deport them to foreign countries, even if they're citizens, because mainly we don't need those day workers at Home Depot because they might also be drug dealers. You are an embarrassment, Tim, an embarrassment to the United States.
Hello? Am I still there?
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah. I wouldn't agree, and I don't think that it's fair for you to sit here and invoke the rule of law. I don't think it's fair for you to invoke the rule of law when you're fine with rioters.
Okay. You don't think it's fair of me to invoke the rule of law when I'm fine with, and the first word out of your mouth before I muted you was rioters. Please show me where I am okay with rioters. This is your one and only chance. Be careful, Tim. Don't start talking yet. This is your only chance before I write down your phone number and ban you. Prove that I'm okay with rioters now.
I would say you can infer that by omission. You're not complaining about it.
Confirm. Oh,
confirm. You are now banned. You are now banned from my show. You are now banned from my show. You are dishonest as fuck. You accused me of being okay with something that I'm not okay with. And when asked to demonstrate it, you said you can infer it by.
You called for rebellion.
Shut up, Tim. Tim, you're not going to ever. Tim, you don't get to speak to me ever again. I've got your number down. I'm going to be banning you, even though you can still call into other shows in the line. You're done talking on my show forever. Begin. Because you don't get to accuse me of something and then refuse to defend it and think, well, you can just infer that by omission. No, first of all, there is no omission. I have stood up many times in opposition to riots, and not just the January 6th one. I've stood up in opposition to multiple riots. So in much the same way that you don't know the Constitution, you don't know how how to pronounce caveat. You don't know what due process is. You don't know what my position is. And yet you are in full-on defensive mode because you have been intellectually pummeled on all the embarrassing things that you are absolutely clueless about as you sit there in your bigotry engaged in whataboutism. I know I would much rather believe that you are a dishonest troll just trying to rile us up than to keep thinking there are people this stupid out there. Unfortunately for you, Trump's got elected by people like you. Whether you're pretending to be one of them or you're actually one of them, I no longer give a fuck. Please go fuck yourself, Tim. You're no longer welcome here. All right. We got more callers, but wow.
Also, real quick before you guys move on, I used Perplexity AI to break down that 150 billion number he brought up. And it turns out the vast majority, and I mean like almost all of it, comes from the U.S. American-born children of immigrants who are entitled to all those programs and would have a Social Security number. So he's attributing to immigrants costs that are incurred by American citizens.
Yeah, which is why they want to get rid of birthright citizenship, because when they start digging in on the actual numbers of what's going on with immigration, it turns out that the supposed cost of this isn't being incurred by the actual any illegal immigrants or people who are here illegally. It is being incurred primarily by the legal children that are here, and that's the anchor babies that they like to call them. It's just embarrassing. But even if Tim was absolutely right about the problem with immigration, and that the absolute best way to fix it is just to round up everybody who's not a legal citizen of the U.S. and deport all of them and kind of hit a reset, you would still have to show who is or isn't a legal citizen. And even if you were willing to do that, you don't get to go throwing out due process. But that's also not the only issue at hand. I'm pretty sure in my opening remarks, I mentioned immigration only because they had a pregnant woman miscarry while begging to be deported to Guatemala, asking to leave. The other things that I talked about are the fact that this dipshit and his parade of unqualified Fox News anchors that he's putting into positions and grocery store clerks that he's putting into positions of power and authority have ripped up deals, disregarded diplomacy, disregarded intelligence, and are now bombed Iran. I don't know exactly where Tim lives, but I'm pretty sure he feels safe there. I wonder if he was actually in the military as I was, and he found himself stationed at, an air base in Qatar, if he'd still feel safe. Maybe if he lived in a town that was a prime terror target for terror cells, maybe he wouldn't be so comfortable. Well, I'm opposed to Trump bombing over there, but we really needed to get rid of these immigrants. So I'm just going to be okay with that. I'm lost.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. That's why I don't think he's real.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. Fun fact for me, I back in 2013, I almost got sent to Qatar for some testing. So that was going to be an interesting thing. I had to take a special class and everything like that in order to possibly get sent over there. But I ended up going to UAE. I went to the Al Dhafra base there. But yeah, and but also I think
but the UAE.
Right. I think that call can be pretty much summed up in a very visual representation that I got when Tim said that, you're wanting to do all this, or, your whole argument stems from just a handful of rules, as if he's crumpling up the Constitution in his hand as being like, is this why you want to keep illegal immigrants here? And I feel like that just sums up the entire call, because it just didn't seem like you wanted to,
some of us take the Constitution seriously, such that we keep a copy with us at all fucking times. This is more important than whether or not you have your birth certificate, Tim. Knowing this is more important, and having it ready, understanding it. Some of us have not only read it, we have it. Some of us not only took an oath to defend it, we actually meant it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And you, Tim, are on the borderline of being a domestic enemy of the Constitution. You're still just exercising your rights to be stupid. But at some point, if you continue to advocate for the fascist dismissal of the rule of law, you will become a domestic enemy of the Constitution. God help us when that happens.
I agree.
Shame there's no God to actually help. Hey, Chris. Chris is calling from UK. Chris is an agnostic, pronouns are him. In this post-truth age, how does fact win over popular opinion? Oh, I think perhaps, Chris, we just demonstrated that it doesn't.
Yeah, I noticed. It's kind of funny. I think, admitted, I'm ashamed to say, I think I see a bit of myself in Tim. I don't agree with his politics, but people like Tim, and a lot of people, seem to go down a rabbit hole from, as soon as they start learning. And it's, obviously things are instilled in you. And obviously the UK is quite different to the US. I know a lot of very conservative Americans think we're practically, communist China. But my point is that these people, people on all sides, they genuinely believe what they think. It's this kind of mythic truth. This is the thing with Trump and with his very loyalist followers. I know there are more nuanced people, but the people that say, no due process for illegal immigrants, this is something that logic and reason cannot dispel. And it's happening over here as well, I'm sure of it. It's, this idea that, the data that, immigration is actually good and helpful, it doesn't work. It's one more point that I want to make. There was the plane crash in the Potomac in January, and I remember Donald Trump, he blamed it on DEI, disabled workers, despite there being no investigation. And his response to that was, I have common sense. And yes. I feel that is what the problem is now. Common sense is the most damaging thing in politics. It is, it's useful in our day-to-day lives, but, we didn't build society without really analyzing information, data. And I worry that today that just doesn't work anymore. We've got people, the common sense crowd are the loudest, and feelings do not care about the facts. That's all I got.
Yeah, I think definitely, people going the emotional route rather than a factual route, I think is pretty bad right now. And I feel like that's one thing that the conservatives over here in America have really tapped into, is that very emotional, that deep, dark, emotional part of the Conservative Party, where, deep down, they do just want to deport brown people, it seems. I'm not saying every single conservative out there, but definitely the MAGA group. I mean, they seem to be getting eerily comfortable just being outright racist. I mean, you've got the vice president who called a sitting, I believe he was a sitting senator, Jose, just because he was had Spanish background or a Mexican background. It amazes me how comfortable they're getting with just being out and out racist in their rhetoric and everything. So I definitely think that they're appealing to emotion here, and I think that when you're appealing to emotion and you're using propaganda in order to sort of provide those dopamine hits, because I could totally see how the conservative mindset gets a dopamine hit whenever they see some kind of information that confirms something they already believe. And so, like, it's almost like a drug at that point, right? And so basically the conservatives are drunk on propaganda right now, and there's no signs of them stopping. I mean, I think that there are signs of individuals that are coming around and seeing the problems and everything, but as far as like MAGA as an entire group, I think that they're still just kind of drunk on the propaganda.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just think because in the UK, we're very secular by comparison. But we kind of we do have a kind of own a sort of religious. It's not religion, but it's very strong, deeply held cultist beliefs. I mean, we've got mostly it's like a patriotic furor, if you will. Is that the word? Furor, whatever it is. But there is this very extremist patriotism, nationalism even, which, as I've said, I haven't said, I wrote it down, that there is a far-right movement sort of growing. They're called the Reform Party, and they're very, very friendly with Donald Trump. And it's disturbing how popular they are in a system that's basically a two-party system like yours. And they have these, again, common sense, emotionally driven policies, and they don't show any signs of, being curbed by fact or reason. And really what I'm trying to ask is, or pose, is how do we overcome this? How does reason prevail?
I don't know. And I'm here every week. I ask myself that same question every single day, over and over again. I engage with other people. Everything that we know and have learned about how we should be changing minds loses to lies and propaganda and making people feel like they're victims. So there's a contingent of the cis het white population in the United States that somehow, in part because they are spoiled as fuck, and in part because they haven't been in a war, they are sheltered from those sorts of conflicts, and they are not the marginalized majority. You see, they're now terrified that it might turn out that they get to be treated the way they're willing to let other people be treated. They feel like, oh, we need to get rid of these people. They're leeching my tax dollars. I guarantee you, if we did an audit on Tim, Tim's contributions to illegal immigrants are negligible. I don't even, the illegal immigrants isn't the phrase I should be using, but people who are here illegally, because most of them entered legally anyway. And it's just like, wow, I'm here and my visa has run out, but I'm not going to leave my job and this pay and this, this other stuff. I get it. The system has problems. But if you throw out the Constitution, there is no system. There is no way to do this. And you heard us on the call when we explain, hey, you don't know what due process is. Here's what due process is. It's defined in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. It is enshrined in legal precedent across the entirety of the criminal justice system and all of that process. It is the reason that these absolute batshit crazy individuals, the sovereign citizens and the First Amendment auditors, are running around and know your rights. You should absolutely know your rights. And if you want to, I don't know why you feel the need to audit somebody's First Amendment stuff, that's fine. And, but I'm watching videos where cops are harassing individuals and demanding their papers. We got past papers, please, but it's still happening. And if you don't know your rights, that's a problem. But if you think the rights apply to you and nobody else, I don't know how to fix that. I tried examples. What are you going to do when they take you? Well, I'll show them my birth certificate. Okay, first of all, Tim, virtually nobody has their birth certificate. I don't believe you carry your birth certificate around with you. But even if you do, you need someone who's willing to look at it and someone who believes it's real. And the due process thing is not so much a right guaranteed to individuals as it is a restriction on the government. It is a restriction to say the government cannot just run around abducting people, locking them up. That we have to show we've got the right person, that we have probable cause, so that we have good reason to think there's a problem, that we have some justification for detaining people. And the sovereign citizens do this. I get to travel this land, unchallenged and unencumbered, and they're right to some extent. But Tim has been lied to. We'll assume that Tim's legit. I have difficulty believing Tim's legit, but assuming Tim's legit, he's been lied to both about the impact of immigrants, the impact of deporting immigrants. He doesn't know what due process is, thinks that he's above it all, thinks that he can tell who is and isn't a real American. Well, let me tell you something, brother. Put on my yellow shirt. The Hulkamaniacs out there, we're all real Americans. It is. The country has now turned into the worst parts of WWE, including putting Linda McMahon in charge of the Department of Education. This stuff that used to be fun and fake, and I say fake in the sense of scripted. I have friends, Ken Anderson and others, or friendly acquaintances. Sorry, I don't mean to count people as friends if we're not. Wrestlers get hurt. It's real. These people put their lives on the line. Owen Hart put his life on the line and died for it. And yet we've taken the worst aspects of that soap opera because we have the Celebrity Apprentice King president and the Fox News cabinet. And we're just saying, you know what? We don't care what the law is. There's a whistleblower account that just came out this morning or yesterday, I forget which one, basically talking about how the Trump administration's internal stated policy was essentially just say fuck you to the courts when they give us a ruling we don't like and do it anyway. And why wouldn't you? You are in a position of power. It's going to take them years to attempt to litigate this. See, we live in a country and a world where there's a 24-hour news cycle, and that's got to be filled with something. We are swiping on our phones all the time. We have to keep our brains fed. And sometimes we get fed mushy crap of, some fake scenario that's just there to keep you watching as long as it can for a commercial. Some of it is nice cat stuff. Some of it is your daily dose of internet. Some of it is important news things. And so the administration's position seems to be throw it all against the wall, do it all. If you are running a 24-hour news channel and the government is throwing so many outrageous breaking news stories at you that you can't cover any of them for any significant amount of time or in any significant depth, then the only thing the public gets is either the last thing they heard or, more likely, the last thing they understood. And if the last thing they understood is immigrant bad, immigrant need to go, then that's what they run with because they can grasp onto that. They don't understand what's going on in the Middle East. Almost nobody does. They don't understand the impact of Russia and Ukraine. They don't understand what Israel's doing in Gaza. They don't care. And I get it. You got a job, you got a family, your dog needs to go to the vet, your kid needs to, hopefully get vaccinated for measles. You got stuff going on. But once you become convinced of bullshit and convinced initially that everybody who doesn't agree with this is lying to you, how do you fix that? Sam Harris years ago pointed out, if someone doesn't value a logical argument, what logical argument could you possibly use to convince them to value it? And I thought I had an answer to that, because the only viable solution that I can come up with is to stop having the discussion you're having and instead have a meta discussion about the logical process and show that they do in fact already value logic, and that they do in fact already value truth, and that they do in fact already rely on this presumption of due process. See, Tim, maybe I should have phrased it this way. Tim feels that whatever due process is, he's just going to get it automatically. And the only people who aren't going to get it automatically are the ones who should be deported. There's like a magical spiritual component to his due process where there's some guiding force that makes sure that it mostly only happens to the people who deserve it. And that we don't have to take into consideration whether or not somebody, oh, by the way, we didn't mention it. Many of the people have been picked up while they're heading into court for their immigration hearings. So we want people to follow the law and to follow the process and become citizens correctly. And yet when they show up to court to do what they're supposed to do, they're scooping them up and throwing them out. How many of them are going to be going to court next week? If you are here and you are not here currently legally, if you're not a citizen, but you had a hearing, you were part of the process, you had your paperwork started, why the fuck would you ever show up for court again? All you're doing is making them go into hiding and hide each other. This process has made it more difficult. And by the way, the real criminals, the rapist drug lords who are secretly hiding out here, they're not trying for citizenship. They're not going to go to the courthouse. They're not standing at fucking Home Depot looking for a day's work. They're not working in the farms out there. You're not going to get them. This process, by its very definition and how it's being run, guarantees that you're going to be scooping up the least harmful, least impactful first. You're sending in Proud Boys, disguising them as ICE agents, to grab the lowest hanging fruit pickers. I don't know how to fix that if somebody does not know how to find truth and then doesn't care about truth once they actually find it. I wish I had a better answer, Chris. I don't know.
Oh, it's funny you talk about Trump like that. Sort of the news, I mean, because if there is one thing I can say about Trump, it's that he, obviously being a reality TV host, he really knows how to speak to a crowd, or at least he certainly did starting out. And because I noticed that when he was on Twitter, he had a method to doing it. To like he would time his tweets just right. You know, it's sort of sometimes I feel that he's more, maybe as a leader he's not great, but as a showman,
Chris, I don't know who you're talking about, and I'm not interested in speculating about what people believe.
Well, what I mean is that somehow Trump gets through, whereas people sort of talking sense, we don't seem to do that. We don't sort of have a way to sway people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we're just kind of reiterating our frustration right now, Chris. I'm going to go ahead and move on because we got some callers who want to challenge me on stuff. We're in agreement. We don't know what to do, and it's awful.
Well, it's good to talk to you guys.
Cheers. Thanks, Chris.
Bye, Chris. It's good talking to you.
So Romont is calling from South Carolina. Pronouns are him. Romont's an atheist who says it was wrong to cut off and mute Tim. I wonder how many minutes we were in that call before I muted Tim for the first time. Hey, Romont, why do you think it was wrong for me to mute Tim?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I muted you right off the bat. Here, let me unmute you. Hey, Romont, why do you think it was wrong for me to mute Tim?
Hey, only because when you hear both sides, it's good to hear both sides. I'm not saying
no,
that
it's
I
not,
disagree
Romont.
against you.
No, it's not, Romont. It's not good to hear both sides. And we waited many, many minutes of attempting to let him give his side over and over again. And he kept refusing to answer the questions and wanted to keep asking us questions and engage in whataboutism.
That is true.
I know, and you shouldn't be talking right now because we don't need to hear your side. When I don't need to engage in a debate with a member of the KKK to be able to explain how and why they are wrong. I don't need to hear both sides of someone denying the basics of human rights. I'm sorry, you're still talking. I don't need to hear both sides of people arguing on behalf of basic human rights. And I don't need to hear both sides of people saying, I'd like to defend the Constitution, and someone else saying, I'd like to throw the fucking Constitution out of the water because I want, or out of the way because it's inconvenient to me deporting people. I'm sorry that you don't like the fact that I muted him, but I reject your assertion that any of us need to listen to Tim any more than we did, or that we muted him too early.
Okay, understandable. I don't agree with deporting people exactly, but we also have to keep in mind too that something is going on in South America which pushes these people up to America. Why aren't the South Americans fixing the issues? And why aren't the South Americans that come to America, why don't they stand up for their rights and fight for their country first before running to another country when
because some people can't do that? Like, I can't fight to defend Texas from an invasion. But also, are you aware that the previous administrations, that their solution to the immigration problem was specifically to help improve those nations from which immigrants were coming so that there would be less incentive for them to leave? It's terrible that El Salvador and Venezuela and whatever countries have been overrun by drug lords and have corrupt politicians, but people who are seeking to escape that, of course they're going to come to the United States, because right there on the Statue of the Liberty is "Give me your tired, poor, hungry, etc., yearning for peace and freedom." So you can't say, hey, if you're being oppressed somewhere, you can come here, and then say, well, why are they leaving their country? They should stay there and fight for it. Some of them did, and some of them lost everything. And some of them are leaving their country because if they stayed there any longer, they would be dead or imprisoned because they're not part of the corrupt environment. The solution, in part, is to make the whole world better because a rising tide lifts all boats. And then, if we get rid of borders, you don't have anybody coming to America. You just have Earth.
Right.
Not a practical solution, but...
Well, just to add a little bit of context here, just in case anybody has any problems with what Matt just said about trying to alleviate all the problems in Central America, Kamala Harris, what she did was she drummed up I believe it was $5 billion in private investments in Central America in key countries that we were seeing the most immigrants coming from. You had had her doing that, and then also the previous administration definitely emphasized for people not to come. Like not to try to come and enter the U.S. and whatnot because they're fleeing, issues that were in Central America. So I mean, there were substantial efforts done by the Biden administration in order to curb it. But still, I do also want to point out that normally conservatives, at least the conservative stuff that I get, is like, oh, you don't like it here, then move. And it seems like now they're complaining about other people that are doing that exact thing. They don't like the area they're in, so they move. It just seems like they're just following the instructions.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Don't get on me for this. I want to say one thing though. The, uh, I didn't join the military because as I was growing, I was willing to join the military. Wonderful idea. But as I started studying and researching the military and a lot of the wars, when I got 18, I realized like, how can I want to serve, but if there if it's corruptness coming from the United States, why would I join a dishonorable military?
I agree.
And then if they go to a war I don't agree with, I would have to go to jail, get some type of fine. I might can't work in the United States anymore.
I'm not going to give you any grief for it. I agree with you. I served. I enjoyed my time, most of it. I'm generally proud of it. However, I have no problem with conscientious objectors. I have no problem with people who decide the military is not for them. As I pointed out to Tim, I'm not better than him because I served. I'm better than him because I will defend the Constitution rather than crumpling it up and throwing it out and wiping my ass with it. That's what makes it different.
That's true.
And my asking him where he served was yet another step in showing not only does he not know or understand the issues, but what has he done to contribute to defending the Constitution at all? Some people contribute by serving in the military. Some people contribute by becoming constitutional scholars and lawyers, protecting the First Amendment rights. There are organizations that serve just to help people who've been falsely accused of things. There are organizations that exist just for immigrants. There are constitutional lawyers and scholars, like a friend of the show, Andrew Seidel, who are out there working constantly for this stuff. Whether or not somebody served, I don't care. I mean, I get when people are like, oh, thank you for your service. I'm like, you don't have to do that. My dad was in Vietnam. Thank him for his service, because that was a shitty time to be in the military. I floated around on an aircraft carrier for 3 days during the Gulf War, watching planes take off and land. I was at less risk during the Gulf War than current troops are at bases in the Middle East right now, because we have an absolute dipshit and with a Fox News host running the Department of Defense. Luckily, the generals are not dipshits and are going to be giving the best advice that they can. And so what you've got is these idiot figureheads in charge. But they thought, oh, we'll just go in and obliterate Iran's nuclear capabilities. Well, they didn't, which means what's going to happen in 3 to 6 months? Are we going to have to do this again? Are we going to have to get bigger bombs? Is the only thing left that would stop this a nuke? And meanwhile, when Iran, who all the evidence suggests Iranian government is basically teaching death to Israel, death to America from the beginning, which makes it really easy for these misinformed, ill-informed right-wing dipshits to be like, yeah, fuck Iran, fuck Iran, I don't care how you pronounce it, just blow them up. That mentality is fomented by Iran teaching this. And then when we drop bombs on them, that just adds fuel to the fire. And now what are they going to do? They're going to activate sleeper cells with, ill intent. And they've already started trying to attack U.S. facilities in the region. They can't attack further than that. I was having a conversation with somebody on Facebook just the other day. We're not at risk of having ICBMs hitting the U.S. anytime soon. But we are at risk for terrorist retaliation, and our soldiers, and sailors, and Air Force and Marines who are over in that area are at risk. And I guarantee you, when the first American flag-draped coffins start coming back from that area, shit's going to go crazy. And you will see the absolute worst patriots, the jingoist ultra patriots applauding the beginnings of what could be a world war.
Yes, I agree with that.
So also, thank you for your non-service.
I didn't serve. Well, I didn't serve directly in any kind of armed forces, but I started my career in missile defense. And the work that I did, I guess recent. I can't speak too specifically, but it recently got rigorously tested, and it was very successful, in terms of missile defense.
Okay. One question though, could it be that because of the BRIC organization trying to get organized, and I also understand that Middle East dollar currency is higher than most other countries because they have oil and these resources. Is it that why these countries are really trying to dismantle to the Middle Eastern countries?
Yes. If you don't, this requires no thought. I mentioned this to Arden earlier today. It is everything that's going on with regard to the United States and Middle East is about two things: Israel and oil. They're the religious end of times. Let's usher in the second coming of Christ, folks. That's the only reason Christians side with Israel by default. You remember, it was the Jews that killed Jesus, and Hitler even used that as a foil to exterminate 6 million of them.
Right.
But there's no such thing as Judeo-Christian. Judeo-Christian is an invention that Christians use in order to make use of Jews to try to bring about the second coming. And Jews are complicit in going along with it because they have been the bastard stepchild battered around and are tired of it. And so they want it all. And so even when they're in the midst of a genocide, even when they are the instigators in some cases, they will justify it as defense. And in many cases, they are defending themselves. I'm not saying they don't have a right to defend themselves.
Right.
But when you listen to what Trump said, when he talked about the Iraq war, he said that he said they shouldn't do it, but he said if they do it, they should have kept the oil. This is the man that we've elected to be president twice, saying that when we went to war in Iraq, he was opposed to it because he's opposed to war. But if we're going to do it, we should have kept the oil. He's an absolute capitalist, imperialist piece of shit. And if you think this stuff's going to happen over there now, this type of thing could get the United States ostracized from NATO, which he's fine with, the United Nations. We could be one of those rogue nations because we elected someone who goes in, bombs someone in order to look tough to his buddy in Israel, and then decides to stay, finish it off so he can keep the oil.
I agree. I agree with that.
It's terrifying, man. But thank you for calling, Romont.
All right. Thank y'all, guys. Y'all have a good day. Y'all be safe.
Yep. You too, man.
All right. You too.
We've got another call here, but we don't have any theists. Tim was a theist, but Tim, you don't need to call back in ever, let alone to defend God. Actually, I'll add that as a caveat. Tim, you can't call in on politics, but as a caveat, you can call in on the God stuff. I'd like you to defend your God. So I'm going to unban you with the caveat that you can only call in about God stuff. But let's take this call. And if we don't get somebody calling in to defend God or MAGA soon, then we'll probably go on to supers and call it a night. It's been a long week. But Ike, pronouns him, is calling in, is an atheist. He wants to talk about losing friends to MAGA. Hey, man, how you doing?
Hey, man. Hey, John. What's going on? First-time caller, long-time listener. Yeah. Like, it kind of slowly started to happen, like, a little bit before the election, but, like, after the election, it was, like, that's pretty much done and over with. And so, like, I was just wondering, like, how do you, like, deal with that for real? And how do you kind of deal with, like, the kind of Christian nationalist undertone that kind of comes along with MAGA as an atheist?
What do you? I guess I don't know what you mean. Like, how do you deal with? Like, what capacity are you talking about? Like, how do I talk to people who support MAGA and the Christian nationalist narrative? Or
yeah, kind of, sort of.
Okay.
Like, or is there like just disassociate?
Well, I mean, I guess what I do. I'm sorry, Matt. This is your show. I don't mean to answer first.
No, go for it.
Well,
I was giving you all the space, man. Go. How you dealing with losing MAGA friends?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't really lost any MAGA friends because I didn't have any MAGA friends to begin with. But I'm an old fuck, so like my friends list is pared down to pretty much liberals. But whenever I do like have conversations with people that support Trump and Christian nationalism and everything like that, I usually try to put it in a context of like trying to get them to step outside of their own shoes to try to examine the situation from somebody that's not conservative or somebody that's not a Christian, or even specifically their denomination. Like with Christian nationalism, it's a violation of people's religious liberties in and of itself, because what you end up having to do is you have to pick one kind of Christianity to enforce the law, and you have to make laws based on one interpretation of Christianity. That's going to end up trampling on people's religious liberties in one way or another. So it's like, you start bringing up, you could say hypotheticals of near real world things, like, well, in Christianity, it says in one version of Christianity, it says this, but in yours, it's, y'all don't adhere to that. How would you feel if that was forced upon you? Like, you have to adhere to that because the government made a law about it. There's different religions out there that have different opinions on abortion. Like Jews, I've seen a number of Jews maintain that their religion supports the access to abortion, and they consider that to be one of their religious liberties is access to bodily autonomy. And so all of this legislation that's going around, about abortion access and everything like that, that's literally violating the religious liberties of not only Jews but also Satanists out there. So like, I try to put it in a context where it directly affects them, because that seems to be the only way that they wake up from it. And we've seen this play out in real time, leopards eating faces and everything like that, because you see so many people that were hardcore MAGA, prior to Trump's inauguration. And then after Trump's inauguration, when ICE started really coming down hard, you had so many people that had loved ones that were either undocumented, or they were on that they were a type of legal status where Trump has made the argument that they should be deported, right? Like, and so they've rounded them up and tried to deport them. And they've even tried deporting American citizens. And so it's taken that kind of shock, that knowing that, oh, they mean me, or Trump's policies directly hurt me. It's only then that they care. And so I try to put it in terms like that for them, so that they realize what the direct impact on them is. Now, that reveals two things usually whenever you bring that up. One, it either outs them as really caring more about hurting other people because they would rather suffer themselves, or suffer their family members being deported, or being negatively affected in whatever kind of way. They would rather have that happen than the other person come away unscathed, unhurt. It's either that, or they seem to come around to like, oh yeah, that's pretty shitty, he shouldn't do that. But typically they, cognitive dissonance, they end up compartmentalizing and all these other psychological tricks that they can do to maintain their MAGAhood. But at the same time be like, yeah, I disagree with that, but I still am 100% super MAGA ultra Christian, kind of thing. So it just you got more of a chance of waking them up when you put it in terms of like, oh, this will directly affect you in a negative way.
Yeah,
I had more camp one. Oh, sorry, but I was just saying I had more camp one than anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at drawing boundaries after 20 years of doing this. And so if you want to deport people without due process, we're not friends and we're not going to be friends. If you want to further marginalize people who are already marginalized, we're not going to be friends. If you want to use trans folks as a convenient boogeyman prop in order to scare people into complying with your extreme view, we're definitely not going to be friends. If you want to allow someone convicted of 34 felonies, impeached twice, to continue to appoint incompetent people, tank the economy, increase the deficit, fire the competent people because they're not loyal, and ban words, then we're not going to be friends. I avoided a very difficult conversation last week while we were on vacation, in part to keep the peace at a family gathering. There's an individual who isn't good with boundaries and is a Trump supporter. And, you know, I went to shake hands because you're going to be civil at a family thing. And they forcibly pulled me in for a hug. Let me guarantee you that if it hadn't been for the fact that we were there for a wedding and everybody was there, that shit would not have happened. I can be civil. We can interact. We are not friends. We are not family. I don't need hugs, and I definitely don't need someone who has boundary issues touching me. I have no problem cutting people out of my life if there are serious violations, a serious disagreement on the foundations. I want my friends to be people I respect and people who respect me, people who value not just the same things, but the similar foundational things. If I don't sit around mourning the death of the past relationship with my parents, I'm definitely not going to give a fuck if somebody I met online, so it turns out to just be awful transphobic, like Dawkins or Hector or whoever else is out there spreading this. Goodbye. See ya. I don't need you around. My life is better without them in it. It's more peaceful. It's less stressful. I do, though, have some relationships that have ended where it genuinely hurt. And then I realized I'm actually better off. It was people who were being fake, people who, pretend to like you because you can get them something. People who pretend to be your friend because you've got a show they might want to be on so they can hawk a book. People who pretend to be your friend because they're clout chasing. They've got some parasocial relationship things. I'm genuinely approachable. I like hanging out with people. We were in the airport and somebody sent me an email saying, is there any chance you are sitting in Dulles Airport flying back to Austin this morning? Got that in an email while I was sitting there. And I replied to the email and I was like, there's 100% chance. Why don't you just come over and say hi? This is way creepier. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to disturb you. I don't want to give you, I don't want to make some kind of a fan moment. I just wanted to make sure it was you. And I'm like, okay, what are the odds that someone who looks exactly like me would be sitting in an airport with somebody who looks exactly like Arden? Pretty low. But by the way, if any of you are ever out there and you see us and you're free to say hi, and you can find out that I'm probably not going to bite your head off in person. I'm probably going to be grateful, and we can have a short hello and goodbye, and it's all good. But I don't need friends. I don't need to pretend to be friends with people who are advocating for racism, for slaughter, for genocide, for the extinction of queer folks. If there's somebody in the reptile community, because we run a reptile breeding business, if there's a breeder in the reptile community that I need to do business with, but they hate queer folks, they can get fucked. I'll let the business tank before I work with them. It's
agreeable.
Not everybody can do that. And I understand. I'm not saying my way is right for everybody else. I'm the weird one for sure, because after 20 years of doing this, I've gotten pretty good at deciding, no, you were one of my best friends. I don't need you in my life anymore. Which I've done to one fraudulent piece of shit that used to work with me at the other place. Anyway, enough of that.
Yeah. But no, thanks. Like, I guess it's just, hard because it was a real good friend from a really long time ago, like a childhood friend, and they just recently lost their uncle, and I went to go see them in the hospital. He died not too long ago. He showed up at the hospital, and we hadn't spoken since pretty much like a couple of days after the election, and so it was like kind of weird to see him. But even though, like you said, like, I don't want to be fake, but it was like, I'll be there, your uncle just died, so I'll be there, in your time of need, but it doesn't mean we're friends after this. So it was just, It was a kind of a hard thing to deal with. So it was, kind of holding that boundary.
Yeah, there are some things I'm even in my kind of people who think I'm callous about it. I'm still in contact with my parents. I still talk to them regularly. I still love my parents. I don't like their views. They don't like mine. And if they needed help, I would still go help them. But I don't miss interacting with them on a regular basis, just because we're very, very different. And I know the more I interact with them, the more amplified those differences are going to become. And so if we can get together every couple of years and talk about the weather and have a meal and go home, that's way better than having any sort of actual relationship. I prefer the family I've chosen over the family that I happen to have been born with. Although the brother that was born into my family is still my favorite person on the planet. So it's a good mix. And you've got to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to maintain your physical safety, but also your mental health and security. And if you are around people that are toxic influences, all you're doing is adding more and more stress and hiding. You're forcing yourself to hide what you really think. This is one of the reasons why I so frequently didn't bother trying to be Zen on the show at all. This is my place to vent. Because if I'm at a family gathering and somebody says, wow, they're finally rounding up all those immigrants, I'm more likely to keep my mouth at least partially closed than I am here. And it's not because I have respect for the individual saying that. It's because I have a respect for the relationships that other people I care about have with that person. Otherwise, I'd lie them the fuck up.
Agreeable.
We got to move on.
And,
I appreciate it, Ike.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It was good talking to you guys.
Care. You too. We are out of callers. Tim ran everybody off.
Yep. Nobody wanted to talk after Tim. They're like, oh fuck, these guys know their shit. And there was 34 people that responded positively to the poll, and they were all pretty much cowards.
It is so wild. But we've got super chats, and let me tell you, first of all, I don't know what the schedule is, but this is only one show out of many on the line. Wednesday nights here is the hang up. I have guests on every week. Thank you so much, John, especially for agreeing on short term to come in and join me this week in a crazy, crazy week. But tomorrow is the Transatlantic Call-In show. Is that still at 2:00 tomorrow, honey?
Yep.
Cool. I don't have the schedule of who's on, and I'm not going to bother Art to come in and fill everything else. But Wednesday night's the hang up. Tuesday afternoons, Transatlantic Call-In show. If you're transphobic, if you've been called transphobic, if you're proudly transphobic, if you're concerned or confused, if you just recently found out a relative of yours is trans or somebody you know is trans, and you're wondering, how can I be a better ally, or why do these people keep saying I'm a bigot, that's the perfect place for you to call. You don't have to worry about getting all the words and the language right. They are going to be helpful and instructive. They are fine having combative calls with people who disagree, and they are fine helping out people who are finding their way in this weird landscape where you're just in the process of truly discovering who you are or discovering who your family members are while they're simultaneously under attack, where people are making declarations. There's only two genders, and the one on your birth certificate's the one you're stuck with, as if you were handed a number 2 pencil and you're not allowed to use anything else ever, even when the lead breaks. It is bizarre to me that we keep waking up in this world, and it is more bizarre that it keeps getting worse. But I am occasionally encouraged both by some of the young people who are actively working to change things, both socially and politically. And, religion may end up taking kind of a backseat in some of these conversations, because I'm going to do a video this week on astrology, but it's mainly a video about why I don't spend time talking about astrology. It's so there's your spoiler. On Fridays and Saturdays, there's occasionally special episodes of shows, Cus I Wanna, and other things like that. And Sunday is going to be the Sunday show at 2:00 and the Sunday show after dark at 7:00. Monday is Skeptalk, and we always try to make sure that we have an educated, science-minded person on Skeptalk. So that's where you can call in about your questions about evolution, about the origins of the universe, about Bigfoot and other cryptozoological proposed creatures and things like that. And then Tuesday nights, right here on the same network, is Chewed Gum, where we focus specifically on sex and religion's kind of manipulations and abuses of women in particular. So that's the bulk of the network. We're going to read all the super chats over $10. John, you want to get us started with this one?
Yeah, sure. So 22 from Cyroy, seeing my former prime minister and current NATO Secretary General's text to Trump, and Trump hearing him refer to Trump as daddy was a definite low and made me feel extremely ashamed of my own country. Keep up the good work, Matt.
Wait, some prime minister,
former, apparently
referred to Trump as daddy?
Apparently.
Somehow I missed this, and I almost feel mad that you sent that in a super chat, because I never needed to know that, but I guess I do. Thank you so much. Wow. $10 from Dave Thomas 94. For the ICE agents, if you're not doing anything wrong, then you have nothing to hide. Show your faces, cowards. Yeah. If you are a duly empowered representative of the federal government, and you are actually out enforcing the law, following the Constitution, why are you hiding your face? Oh, it's because people out there might not think that we're actually following the Constitution. Yeah. Why is that? Is it because we keep getting information that you are deporting people without due process? Is it because we keep having whistleblowers come out? Or is it because while you guys cover your face, we can see your fucking Proud Boy tattoos on your arm? We know this administration Trump values loyalty over everything else. So of course he's going to allow a bunch of white supremacists and Proud Boys to go out and act as ICE agents. I guess we should be thankful Kristi Noem isn't out there anymore. Puppies be getting shot.
We get 1001 from Untitled Final Version 2. This version says, "Hi, Godless. Hi, Matt. Hey there, Untitled Final V2. This version."
That's a hell of a name there to get through. Thank you so much. $10 from Dave Thomas 94. If we're deporting criminals, then we should start in the White House. Well, see, we're only deporting criminals who aren't citizens right now. Later, when we start deporting anyone, the rule will change to be anyone who's not loyal to Trump, you'll be subject to their. And by the way, that would still require some form of due process. It's funny how many people are so confident that they can. It's the same thing. Oh, I can tell. I can tell who's here illegally. I can tell who's trans. I can tell who's this. I can tell who's that. We don't need due process. It's ineffective. There's no silver bullet that we can use to figure out, anything. Oh, we need. I love the little meme about people like having people lift up their skirts to check genitals so they can keep the perverts out of the bathroom. It's an absolutely hilarious meme because it tells on them in the best way. Let me tell you something. No predatory man has ever had to pretend to be a woman in order to assault women. And nothing you do, nothing you object to with regard to pronouns or driver's license or anything else, nothing you do will ever change that. Because if someone wants to engage in that sort of activity, they're operating outside of the law and they will continue to. You know what stops me from shaving and putting on a dress and walking into the women's room to assault people? I don't want to assault people. I don't want to do any of that. You know what trans people tend to want more than anything else? To be left the fuck alone. To stop being used as your prop. Oh no, if we allow the gays to marry, the dogs will be marrying cats next. It'll be the end of the world. Oh no, if we allow people to transition, we're just supporting mental illness and who knows what'll happen then. And we got to protect the women and the girls. Stop infantilizing people. Stop being ignorant. Stop empowering your ignorance and using it as a weapon to go after people because you are a terrified little boy. And it's mostly the little boys. I get it. There's a bunch of cishet white women who voted for Trump and they fell into the fear mongering too. But it's the boys. Let's be real.
$9.99 from Greg Markowski, who says, thanks for the show.
Thanks, Greg. Greg used to be first almost every week, and now he's like fifth in the order, which just means that there's people getting in there earlier than Greg, but I always like seeing it. It's my Greg, you're my touchstone for Wednesdays. $10 from Robin Good. I heard a World War II story of a conscientious objector named Desmond Doss. He was a war hero who saved many lives. Does this give any validity to his religious beliefs? I've had this argument pushed before. No. If I do good in the name of God, the good is validated, the God is not. Thanks, Robin.
$10 from the Fuzzy Logic, who says there are natural born American citizens who are brown and only speak Spanish. Do they deserve to have the same rights of citizenship that the rest of us do? If your answer is no, you're a racist.
Yep. True. $10 from Stephen Jenkins. By the way, on the racist thing, there were legitimately people in the 2016 election who told me they were going to vote for Trump because people on the left called them racist for supporting some of the policies. And so that made them mad. And even though they didn't like Trump and all of his policies, they were going to vote for him as a fuck you to the people who said they were racist. And I was like, so basically you're saying they were right. Basically, you are prioritizing your own hurt feelings over being called a name over the actual impact that it will have on the people that these other folks were concerned about. I try not to sum up the entirety of someone's character. I don't say, you're a transphobe, you're a racist. Instead, I try to say, what you did is transphobic, what you said is racist, the policy you're advocating for is racist. The exception is, I will call someone a bigot when they are engaged in bigotry. And I'm sure I've made other exceptions and mistakes along the way, and I will apologize and correct them however we can. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to call out injustice. Don't be afraid to say, no, Mr. Centrist. No, Ms. Centrist. You are enabling. You are contributing. You are part of the problem by engaging in this both sides. Oh, let's just be nicer and play nice. No, we've had the time to play nice. And the fascist fucking took over. Call it what it is. $10 from Stephen Jenkins. We can fix our broken immigration system while still recognizing our common humanity and treating each other with dignity and respect. In fact, it's the only way we ever will. Barack Obama. I'm not convinced that he's right that we actually can. But I certainly agree with the sentiment there that if we do it in a way that does not respect the Constitution and the dignity and the humanity of individuals, I don't know what we're trying to save. It's like, you know, cutting off your nose to spite your face.
$10 from Dave Thomas 94 says, Tim, reading Fox News statistics does not make it true. They got sued for a reason. Yeah, well, and I mean, he was reading something from an actual, part of Congress, but it was from the House of Reps, who used a right-wing anti-immigration think tank in order to prepare said statement. So I mean, they were just using a right-wing think tank and just published through the government, essentially, or the government used their stuff because it, the House of Reps has been Republican controlled for a while now. So I mean, they controlled where they were getting their data, and they sourced their data from racists.
Yeah, just like the anti-vaxxers sourced their data from a flawed study. 10 pounds from Jessica Doodoo McButtface on behalf of Tim. Growlith Kavitz espions for breakfast. Hashtag love you soon. Hashtag Force for president. Producer lady, do you have any comment?
I have nothing to say to Doodoo McButtface. No.
Let's see, $10 from Do, who says, how can you say we don't have time for 11 million immigrants to get due process? We need to have time for all 340 million people who live here to have due process. That's how the system works. Yeah, I actually looked up what our current prison population is, and it's just over 1 million is what the first figure said, and then there was another figure that said in 1 year there was over 5 million people that were under judicial supervision of some kind of in some kind of capacity. So regardless of that, the number the number is feasible to do that. It's just, it's not feasible if you're a child and you think that it all has to occur in one courtroom at the exact same time. That's when it's not feasible. It is feasible to provide every single person in America with due process. And I still stand by the fact that feasibility doesn't matter, because our Constitution demands it. And so until Congress changes the Constitution, we should adhere to what the Constitution lays out. That, I mean, it's a really simple equation, I feel.
Yeah. $10 from Daniel. Daniel, my brother, you are younger than me.
Damn, Daniel. $10 from Day Thomas 94, who says, make racist uncomfortable again. I try to do that every time I stream.
Yep. And Dave Thomas trying to set a new record for $10 contributions, and we're incredibly grateful. Thank you so much. Tennessee now has a law criminally charging anyone harboring illegal immigrants that is so vague that almost anyone can be charged. This is some scary times. I don't know about the specific law, but here's something of note. When you set up your team full of incompetent individuals to write laws, you will write laws with so many loopholes and flaws that they cannot be effectively enforced and can only be abused. We've seen this over and over again when they tried to define marriage And then they get to, they just defined the whole thing away, literally abolishing every marriage because they got sloppy in how they worded the laws. It is wildly. Make America competent again.
That's a monumental task. I don't know if that's feasible. $20 from Benjamin Reynolds, who says, I won't trade humanity for patriotism. Well, I mean, I guess I have a different understand. Like, I think patriotism can be toxic, and these ultra mega patriotic people are not, in fact, being patriotic because they're centering all of their patriotism around the single person that is the president, instead of, being patriotic towards the country by supporting and defending the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Like, I feel like that's patriotism. The supposed patriotism by the conservatives right now is not patriotism.
Yeah, dissent is patriotic. Jingoism is what we're objecting to, and it's the same thing we see in lots of other places. People. By the way, for all you atheists out there, people will talk about, the atheist regimes have killed more people than anybody, and the problem with something like the Soviet Union and its atheism is not the atheism. It was imposing atheism as a quasi-state religion and making the state the religion. Because atheism itself doesn't grant you any power. It's nothing. It's a nothing burger. But when you use it to build a system that oppresses people, congratulations, you've now created an entirely secular, yet still controlling fascist regime. $10 from Joshua Everett. Thanks for talking about this stuff. A few members of my family have taken to getting all of their information about the world from True Social memes. I don't think they even know what they support. I think most of them probably don't either. And we see it from callers. I haven't caught up. I didn't get to see last week's episode, but I love when Jimmy is on. I love watching the way, especially when somebody falls into making claims about an area where he spent a lot of time actually digging in and studying stuff. Watching the way he does that, but don't tell him that, because he'll just fucking get a big head. And I think I like him, and that's not true.
Yeah, I've on my Facebook page, I've actually taken to getting Donald Trump's True Social posts, and with the big long wording ones, and I'll feed them through like Perplexity AI or something like that to have it do like a comprehensive fact check on it, and then I like to double check the information, obviously, but I like to produce like a sort of like a photo collage sort of memes that debunk every single talking point that he puts in his fucking bullshit truth posts. And they've not gone over all that great on the page. Not a lot of people share them, but I feel like it's my own, it's the least I can do to sort of fight back against all the propaganda they're putting out. 1999 from John Kennel, who says, quote, I have disguised my voice and appearance for this super chat to throw off the feds. You guys cut through the bull with such ease. Thank you. Damn, that was a hell of a voice changer. I mean, shit. I've never heard a voice changer where you would want to sound more Southern, but, John decided to do it.
It's funny that when you said with such ease, my brain went to what kind of cheese? I've never heard of such cheese. $20 from Rob Lexa. I'm going to send this donation, but I'd like to add a few caveats first. Well, I'm sorry. It's already been sent. Somebody needs to start a cafe called Caveats.
Yeah.
And you come in and you get like, they only do open-faced sandwich because everything has to be half-assed in Caveat land.
$10 from Wholesome for Clout, who says, I was really hoping to talk to Matt about my experience leaving the church and my rapidly radicalizing family tonight. This really hit hard. Maybe we'll talk about something another time.
Well, I am. I'll be around. I don't know how else to respond to that, but yeah, it's Sunday show is a better time. Actually, the Sunday show after dark is probably the best time to call and talk about your experience leaving the church. But honestly, and I'm happy to take calls like that on occasion. We're always going to prioritize theists, and it may be a good idea for a show to have one where it's just formerly religious people sharing their story briefly and talking about it, kind of a recovering from religion show. Because when you feel like you're the only one, and it's really debilitating. And then when you realize, oh my God, there's 50,000 people who've had almost the same story or the same problem or the same interaction. Oh, this wasn't as unusual as I thought it was. I'm not alone. That's incredibly valuable. It's one of the big reasons why, we support recovering from religion. Oh boy. All right, Mr. Boricua. All right, Tim. What in the bloody depths in the empty head of yours made you think the due process only works for you? Oh, you're so bleeding evil as to know. Oh, I'm Australian all of a sudden. As to not care about your fellow human. Why are you on birth certificates? Meat against the wall. There, I went English, Australian, Scottish, I think, at the end. And somebody will say, no, you were nowhere near any of those. And that person is right.
I have to say, Mr. Borica, sorry, I know I didn't pronounce that right, but you need to throw a few more innits in there. I know that much about, the dialect from bruv, isn't it?
Bruv.
Me against the wall, isn't it?
And a piece of piss, bruv. Cheers.
$9.99 from Protect the Dolls says Trump only bombed Iran because no one came to his birthday party. People praise this guy while his ego is so incredibly fragile. I am just so glad we got an unemotional man in the White House instead of a completely emotional woman that would have done something crazy like, bomb an entire country.
Yes. Oh, it's just terrible. Actually, I've heard a lot of people say this, Protect the Dolls. I think he was planning to do this anyway.
Yeah.
$10. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've actually kind of clocked it like getting ramped up a few months ago, because that's when Pete Hegseth sent out a memo to the entire DOD that they were going to be switching the posture to a wartime posture. It's like, why would we do that there, Pete Drunkaseth?
Yeah, you've got members of the administration talking about what to do in case of nuclear weapons and all this stuff. And I'm like, hang on. That's why we were warning about some of it. $10 from Inane Glory. I've always found the question of innocent jailed versus guilt to go free is one of the best tests of someone's ethics and who you should let into your life. Yeah.
$19.99 from Fliberty Giblets, who says, hey, Matt, been binging old episodes of all your stuff. Do you ever end up buying a 12-string guitar?
Yes. I'm going to get rid of most of my guitars. But there are at least 2 guitars that I plan to keep, even if I can no longer do anything. One of them is my 6-string Martin, and the other one's my 12-string Taylor. And then I'll also keep my ukulele. I think those are probably the only 3 that I'm really dead set on keeping. There's others that I'm going to get rid of. For those who don't know, I never was good. I don't play. Oh, I love that. A bankalele. I don't play particularly well. I never played particularly well, but because of the diabetes and the neuropathy, my pinkies no longer work. And because I don't spend any time practicing, and because I can't sing as well as I used to, which you're getting ready to find out in a minute, I don't play as much as I used to. But Yes, I have a beautiful Taylor 12 string that I really love. It's got great sound. And here is potentially the last super chat, although we'll see what happens.
Oh, is it my turn to read?
I think so. If not,
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, $10 from Renegade Sapper. I'm going to keep fighting for veterans' rights and benefits until they hand my sons a folded flag. Veterans for Trump broke their oath.
True. So that's probably the last super chat. I'm going to do something real quick. If one comes in sneakily, I'll probably get to it. I had a weird interaction on the plane, which is I was sitting there watching. I'm only doing this because 25% of the people said they'd seen Hamilton. So for the 75% who haven't seen Hamilton, I'm sorry in advance. And to the other 25%, I'm also sorry to you as well. Anyway, I was thinking about when King George III comes out the first time. And if you're familiar with it, it's the part of Hamilton that white people understand right off the bat. And it's hilarious, but he's coming out to be like, oh, you're going to throw your tea into the sea and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. I realized while I was sitting there that he's got the exact same attitude that Trump has right now as some MAGA folks are leaving him, including Marjorie Taylor Greene and others. And so I started writing a song parody to the King George III song, which I'm going to do for you now, a cappella. Sorry. Because I liked it and thought it was funny, and I'm never going to finish it, so it's not going to become a full video. For those of you who don't know anything about Hamilton, yeah. So he comes out. This is Trump to MAGA. You say you didn't know tariffs are something that you'd have to pay. You cry when my ICE agent Proud Boys in masks make your neighbors go by. Why so sad? Remember you voted for leopards who now eat your face. Now you're making me mad. Remember, despite 2 impeachments, I'm your dad. You'll be back. Soon you'll see. 'Cause the left don't make you feel like me. You'll be back, despite the smell. You're in love with this orange ne'er-do-well. Oceans rise, climates change, and I'm seriously deranged. And when puss meets my hand, I will tear up deals inside with Israel so that we can bomb Iran. Da-da-da-da-da, cook another hamburger. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da. Sorry. That was fucking awful.
Y'all better super chat for that. Come on.
That was
you gotta toss some ones on the stage for this guy. Come on.
That's insane. Make it rain, motherfuckers. 2 quick super chats came in. I'll head up real quick. $10 from Dave Thomas 94. Thanks for the show. You guys are awesome. Also a future ball python breeder, and I, like you, Matt, won't be doing business with bigots. Awesome. If you need any snakes, reach out. And if you need any advice, reach out. We're going to have carpet pythons in a month, assuming everything goes right. And the final super chat for today from, oh no, another one came in right afterwards. Mr. Boricua 10. You should do this one, John.
All right, I can try. British. Oi, mate, give me a B-O face, bruv, isn't it? Character limits and IAE splitting my messages. I type too slowly because moving disorders and autism.
Oh, here's another one.
I did not do that justice.
$10 from Jam Nick 6, and that's the way we'll end the show. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please stay safe. Please do your best to stand up and help others stand up in opposition to the traitors and the fascists that are abandoning the Constitution, abandoning humanity, abandoning humanism, abandoning dignity, and doing everything they can to get power and wealth at the expense and on the backs of everybody else. We'll see you next week. TACIS tomorrow. Patreon.